All right, well, welcome back to our stamp club. And I just wanted to show, kind of as a reminder to everybody who's here and when this gets posted, this is what we did last week. So we made some really fun tags, mainly with the Fitting Florets collection. And I know we've already talked about this, that these gorgeous little gems are sold out. I'm sorry, but they're no longer available. But this was just really fun to make. So we made a tag. And then if you are not super excited about a tag, but you like the design, you can do something similar and turn it into a card. So these are the two that we made. And I do have a video. I apologize, I haven't had a chance to post it yet. We were actually out of town at a wedding. And this week, I wanted to just give a couple of quick tips and tricks. And I made a shaker ornament. And this is using a lot of the products, again, from the Fitting Florets collection. But I'm going to be mimicking what I did. It's going to look very different. I haven't even put the whole thing together. But I'm going to do a completely different design using completely different dies, because I wanted to show how you can make something like this. You know, if you don't have these dies, you definitely don't need them. But I did think that it was pretty with this. So the first thing that I suggest that you do if you want to make a shaker ornament is you want to get some dies cut out. And when I did the shaker card, the one that, or the ornament that's over here on the left, I used this die that's in the Fitting Florets. And I cut out, I think I ended up with 7 layers of cardstock. They are not blue, they're white. This is the one that I had kind of in my little stash. But this is a die that is cut with this die. And it actually cuts out 2 pieces. And what's really cool about it is that when you run it through, you get those 2 pieces, these 2. And the one that I used to make the shaker card is the frame, because we're going to build up the frame. So this die works great for that, because every time you run the die through the machine, obviously you're going to get something that is exactly the same size. It is designed for that. It's going to cut out the center and it's going to cut out the frame. Great. But maybe you don't have that die or a die that's similar. That's not a biggie. So what I did for the one that I'm going to make as we go through this is I got a couple of concentric circle dies. These are from the layering circle dies. And I put them pretty much like that. Then I grabbed some washi tape and I put a couple of pieces of washi tape on these dies, and I oriented them so the blades are actually facing away. Tried to get them centered, put washi tape on them, and then I ran them through my die cutting machine. And what I got was a series of concentric circle frames. And what you're going to notice here is that they're not perfect, you know, and I really don't care, because I'm going to be doing some different things with them. But for example, this looks a little wider than over here. It's fine, because we're going to do some different things to them. But what I wanted is I wanted enough of these paper frames to be able to glue them together to give me some width. Because, you know, in the past, when we've made shaker cards, we've used that thick, double-sided, like a dimensional, but it's more in strips. So it's the adhesive strips. And what's tricky with that is on the inside, where you have the sequins moving around, you've got exposed adhesive. So those stinking little sequins tend to stick to the sides. They're not sticking to the sides of this because I didn't put adhesive in the center. I used paper. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try to do this pretty quickly, is I'm just going to build up my layers. And there's no mystical, magical anything here. And you're going to figure out how many pieces of paper you need. Probably need some glue that actually works. That would be a good thing. I have so many of these little glue bottles everywhere, and I don't know which ones actually have any glue. But I'm just going to start layering these up. And what I'm going to try to do is not get glue in the middle. I'm going to try and get it so the glue is not going to ooze out on the inside. So in other words, I don't want the glue to gush out in the middle. And I'm just going to start layering these and kind of go around and make sure that they're kind of nice and together. The big thing is on the outside, I want that outside circle to really be nice and lined up. And what's cool about this is you can use any shape you want, you know, rectangles, circles, ovals, triangles. I got out some of the nested label dies and I was going to play around with those. And I think I still will, because I think they would make a really fun shape. So I'm just layering these up, and they're not going to be perfect because not every part of that circle is the same width. But I'm going to show you a trick at the end where it doesn't matter. No one will ever know. No one will ever see. And I'm also using just regular cardstock. So if you use thick cardstock, you probably won't need 7 layers, but you can judge and just kind of see how many layers you want. And just layer it on up. Keep on going. You can also use different colors. I'm obviously using white. It's just the easiest to do. And you might want to use whatever color you are using for the front of your card so that it all looks like it's the same part or part of the same design. Designer series paper. Yep, that would work. Obviously, that's going to take a little bit more in terms of numbers. And this is a great way to use up scraps because you can put many different colors in this if you want, which would also be kind of cool because you'd be able to see different colors if you look at it from the side. So what we're doing here is just simply building up kind of that thickness that we would normally do with the foam adhesive that we've used in the past. But what's happening with this is I don't have any adhesive in the middle where I'm running my finger right there. I don't have any adhesive, so the sequins are not going to get stuck. And it's honestly, a little bit less expensive without using those foam pieces. So it's pretty quick. It depends on how much you want to layer it up. I'm just going to put one more. And you can judge this as you do it. And as you do it, you'll find that the thickness is going to start to feel kind of like a dimensional. And when you get to that point, you're probably pretty okay. And it's all about experimentation because you're going to find that you will know how many layers of paper is what you want to do. All right, so I've got my 7 layers and I want to show you one thing because you're all going to say, oh my goodness, you're a crazy person. I can see if I hold this up, it's not perfect. And even when I was trying to line things up, I have some that are in front of others. I don't care because I'm going to show you how you can hide that when you're done. So I've got my 7 layers. Sounds like a 7-layer cake or something. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the acetate. So there's a piece of acetate that is between the frame and the stamped grading that's on designer series paper. There's acetate. I am a big proponent of quick and easy on shaker cards. And I've got some acetate. I'm going to tell you this is not Stampin' Up. This is something that I think I probably bought on Amazon. And I'm going to cut a piece that I know is bigger than the opening that I need. So you can see that that is bigger. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to run this through my die cutting machine. A lot of people will cut acetate with their dies, and you can, but I'm not going to do that because I want to be absolutely sure that I can get that piece on very easily and in a way that is going to look nice. So I'm looking at the layers that I just did, and I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to make sure that I know what side is the front. And this is me at the end. It's really not going to matter, but this is the side that was the last one that I attached. And here I'm going to grab some tear and tape, and I'm going to put a layer of tear and tape around on top of that frame. And what's kind of interesting is that the width of the tear and tape, and I think this is a 1/4 inch, might be an 1/8 of an inch. I think it's a 1/4.
I think
It's
you're
a
right.
little too wide on some of the areas for this circle. That's not a biggie. So I'm going to take some tear and tape, cut that off. And then I'm going to, I did this, the same thing on this ornament, because if you look at the width of this die cut, that tear and tape is, it's going to hang over the edge. And I didn't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to get my scissors, and this only takes a second. I'm going to cut this tear and tape in half so that it is narrower and it's going to fit much better around that frame. And then I'm going to take one of the pieces. I've got a lamp that's right next to where I'm working, and I literally just stuck it to the lamp. And I'm going to take that tear and tape and start randomly, and I'm going to just press that around. And don't worry that you're going to get these little bumps, because you are trying to fit a straight piece into a round shape. And you're going to have to push that down, and it's going to look like it has bumps in it, because it does, but don't worry about it. It's not going to affect what we're doing. And then before I put the second piece on, I'm going to go ahead and take the backing off of that first piece, but I'm going to leave it so that I know where the end of that first piece is. Just visually, it's a nice little cue. And then I'm going to start up right at the end of that first piece. And I've got the second half of the tear and tape that was hanging on my lamp. And I'm just going to bring that around to finish up the circle. This is very, very, very similar to what we do typically when you use the foam adhesive, because you're trying to make sure that the shaker box, shaker compartment has adhesive all the way around. I'm coming back to that first piece that I put on. I'm just going to take that wax paper off, and I'm going to go in for that second half, and I'm going to rip that piece off as well. So here's my acetate. I'm going to lay that flat. I want that to be flat. I don't want any bubbles in it. I don't want anything like that. And this is the piece that I just put the double-sided tear and tape on. I'm going to turn that over so the tear and tape is facing the acetate, and I'm just going to press that on. And then I'm going to trim off around my circle. And I suggest that when you trim, that you trim from the back. You trim from the part where the part that's multiple layers is facing me. And the acetate, if I rub my hand on the acetate, it's flat on the back. And what that's going to allow me to do is I can kind of get up underneath where the acetate is right at the corner, and I'm just going to trim this off. To me, this is easier than attempting to cut the acetate with the dies and then line it up with the pieces that I've put together, layered together. It just, to me, is simpler. And right now, with everything going on for the holidays, simple is working for me. And yes, you are going to lose a little bit of your acetate, but no biggie. And I'm just trying to trim it so that it's the shape of the pieces that I cut. And you can see that that worked pretty well. So I've got my acetate on there. Now, what we want to do is we want to kind of think about filling up our shaker piece. So where we're going with this is I have pre-stamped a sentiment. And when I stamped a sentiment, I intentionally put it a little off to the side, because when the shaker ornament is hanging, gravity is going to pull some of those sequins down. And I wanted people to still be able to read Noel, even if the sequins are down here. I also want to make sure that it's nice and tight when it gets put on, which means that I used the large die, the larger of the two circle dies. This is the one that I used on the outside when I was cutting the frames. And that's what I used to cut my sentiment. This is the paper that comes with the fitting florets. It's super pretty. And this is the stamp set that is available right now with the fitting florets. They're framed and festive. I didn't need more Christmas stamps until I got this, because obviously I needed these because they're fun. And I stamped that in Evening Evergreen. I just wanted to do a little bit of a, you know, kind of a winter theme. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill the shaker box. We're going to put some adhesive around the edge, and then we're going to close the box up. And what's nice about a shape like a circle is I don't really care if my sentiment is right side up, upside down, because it's a circle. It doesn't matter. If you have a square, squares are easy because you'll be able to get your sentiment lined up. Just pay attention if you've got something that really needs to be thoughtfully put together when you get to this point. So what I did for my little shaker pieces is I used some, I'm sorry, but some retired sequins. And I've got two sets. I've got some bigger ones that have snowflakes and some big silver sequins and some little silver ones. And then I went a little nuts a couple years ago when these were out. And I've got a bunch of these fun little sequins that are going to go in there. Now, two things. One is when you do any kind of shaker boxes, you're going to get static. So it's a really good idea to treat your acetate just a tad. This is an embossing buddy that I've had for 1,001 years, and it still works. Stampin' Up! Has a new kind of set that is all about embossing, and there's a little embossing buddy that's in there. And I'm just tapping that around just a little bit and trying to get some of that static off. The other thing is when I make shaker cards, I always make sure that there are a couple of sequins that are stuck to my sentiment. They're not going to move. I just think it's fun. I think it helps people see that it's meant to be shaken. So it's not like all the little sequins are down at the bottom. There are a couple that are actually stuck onto the sentiment. And I'm going to mirror that. So what I'm going to do is just take a couple of these and use some glue dots. And I'm going to attach just a few. And I'm only going to attach probably 3. This is a little bit of a smaller sentiment, and I don't want it to get overwhelmed. So I'm just putting some glue dots on these little sequins. And that way, when I add more to the shaker, these are going to stay. They're going to me, it looks kind of cool. It's an extra step if you want. If you don't, no big deal at all. And sort of randomly adding these in. Now, inevitably, what will happen is because the glue dots are behind the sequins, when the shaker is shaken, there will be some sequins that will stick to these, and hopefully not too many, but there will be some that will stick. All right. So now we need to fill our shaker and be liberal, have fun. It's kind of like when you make Christmas cookies and you put sprinkles. And I don't know how much this is, but enough that it's intentional and it doesn't look skimpy. And then you have some options as far as how to attach in this case, the stamped designer series paper to the back of the shaker card. You can put glue and you can glue it up, or you can use the tear and tape. I'm going to do the tear and tape. I think it does a little bit better of a job. It's going to very quickly make sure that everything is adhered. And hopefully I'm going to find that having put those sequins in wasn't a mistake, because they may be attracted to any kind of static that the tear and tape has, but we're going to find out. The other option is you can glue, put some Tombow or something right on where I'm putting this tear and tape down. And what I found is if you put Tombow, you have grace to be able to get your stamp designer series piece exactly where you want it. But there is a better chance that the sequins are actually going to get in between the designer series paper piece and that last piece on your frame, and they might actually stick. I found that on one that I made. So this is my attempt at seeing if the tear and tape is going to work. And this crazy tear and tape, there we go. The wax paper was not coming off. It was sticking all the way around. All right, I'm going to do the second piece, and then we're going to see what's going to happen here. But this can be, just a really fun project to put together. It's definitely one that will wow people if they've not received a shaker card before. And I am a little short on that tear and tape, so I'm going to come back and put in another piece in just a second. I'm just going to pull off that wax paper, and I'm going to do one more little piece right there. So the big thing is try to get adhesive all the way around so your sequins are not going to sneak out after they have been captured inside. Tear and tape is like dimensionals. You will find it everywhere. So I've got my adhesive all the way around, And now I have the piece, and in my case, it's a circle. So I do not care. Just going to stand up and try to get it where it needs to go.
I like the DSP, the pattern in the back. Smart.
And just put it right on the back. And then give it a nice push. You're just trying to seal that in so that those sequins are going to be not able to escape. And I like doing this with designer series paper as well, because on the back, you've got a really pretty design, you know, so even if you look at this from the back, it looks really, really pretty. And then when I turn this over, my sequins are moving around, and those three that I purposely put are also kind of giving that visual cue of it's something that needs to be shaken. So we've made the basic, and then it's all about what you want to do with decorating. And I just started messing around. I use the large and medium-sized poinsettia stamps from Mary's Moments. I've used this stamp set quite a lot this year. I really, really like it. And I use both sides of the poinsettia pieces. And I also used the little dots that go on the inside. These were stamped in polished pink because polished pink is in the designer series paper. And then the inside of the poinsettia was done in Mango Melody because it's a nice, bright, vibrant color. And I'm just going to kind of layer these up. I haven't bought any poinsettias this year. Have you guys done any? Have any in your homes?
Not
Yeah.
yet. Anne's got
Yeah.
it.
And
I
what
got
colors
an
do you?
artificial one from last year. I just keep bringing it up.
There you go.
Perfect.
What color poinsettias do you guys like?
Pink. I'm a traditionalist. I like the red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Red for me.
Yay.
I like reds. I also like the ones that have a little bit of a creamy color or
Those
variegated. They're pretty.
they're very pretty.
And I don't remember who told me this, and I'm sure I've heard it before, and I'm sure you all know it already. The poinsettia is actually, these are leaves, not petals. So it's all about leaves. And so to make it look like maybe like a poinsettia, I put one layer of the large stamp, but I did that in an evening evergreen, kind of tucking up underneath. And that's meant to be what I would have called the leaf, but I guess the whole thing is a leaf, which is fine. And then I'm just going to layer these together with a little bit of glue. And I found when I was using the polished pink ink pad, it was juicy. Oh my word. Some of my ink pads are super juicy. So I actually stamped off before I stamped the final image. And I'm just going to turn this a little bit. Yeah, on one of the cards or one of the projects we did last week. Or no. I actually, this one, I thought these were kind of cool as a color for a poinsettia.
What color is that?
Pale papaya.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of fun. And there are no rules, right? We can make a poinsettia on whatever color we want.
The beauty of crafting.
Exactly. All interpretation. And I'm just going to kind of stack these little guys together, put them aside for 2 seconds to let them begin to dry a little bit. because eventually they will go on the front. But now getting back to this lovely creation. If you make your own frames and you put everything together, like I've already mentioned, and like you'll find, you are not going to, probably not going to be able to get everything layered together so it's perfectly aligned. And that will mean that there will be some areas where you're going to see where the different layers are coming together. Don't worry about it. Here's a thought. I took the largest die that I had used to cut out these frames. And then I found a die that is a little smaller. This is the one that I used to cut out the inside. So I'm just going to layer those together. That's what I did originally when I cut out the white. And I thought, you know what, if I can make the front a little bit thicker, then I can hide any imperfections. So I found a die that's a scallop die that's a teeny bit smaller than this one, than the one I use for the middle. And I put those two dies together. This is the original for the outside. And then this is the scallop one. And I cut out this piece. And when I put that on top, what's going to happen is the outside obviously is the same size, but the inner one, you can't tell there's any imperfection there. It's all hidden. So that's kind of a fun little tip. If you want to hide any imperfections, create something that maybe is a little bit decorative, make it a little bit wider, and no one will ever see if you have some areas that aren't quite lining up. No one will ever know.
Put a flower on top of it.
And I'm going to put a flower on top too. I'll put a flower on here in just a minute. But then I was thinking, oh, good grief, I don't have anything to use to hang. You know, here, because the die has this really pretty built-in hanger, all I needed to do was put some of the twine in, and there we go. We have an ornament. Well, I have extras of these because I've cut out a ton of these. So I thought, well, what if, I haven't done this yet. This is pure experimentation. We're going to see if it works. But I thought, why wouldn't I just maybe take part of that and tuck it up underneath, and then I'll have a hanger. So we're going to find out if that works. And all I'm going to do, because I want it to look good from the front and the back, is I'm just going to take this entire frame, if my glue will cooperate, and I'm going to fold it in half and glue it together. And that way the top will look good on the front and the back. So just kind of glue that all together. And I don't need the whole thing. I do need to figure out how much I need. So I kind of fit it here because I'm going to hide it on my white frame. So I think if I cut it right about there, I was just looking at it visually when I put it down. So if I put that kind of right in there, that will work. That will work just fine.
Genius.
And then I'm going to put this little guy right on the top. And now it looks intentional. So two ways I can do this, because I've got a circle and it doesn't matter how I orient this. I can glue the white piece to the green piece, or I can glue the white piece to the white piece. I'm going to glue it to the green because then I'm going to have an opportunity to figure out how I want to orient in total. So I'm just going to take my glue and put it pretty much on those extensions that aren't going to be seen. And try to get it so it looks like it's even. That's not bad. And then just make sure that the glue is doing what it needs to do. And I'll let that set for just 1 second. And then I'm going to put some glue all around the back piece. And I will put that onto the front. And I do want that just to set for just a sec. So it decides that it's not going to go anywhere. And then I'll just put some glue on the back. And now I can have a better idea of how I want to line things up. And what's also nice about the font is it's wonky, so it doesn't matter. There's not a right or a wrong way. Because the circle is the same size as what I used to make the outside of my frames, I'm just making sure that everything is lining up really well all the way around. And I'm going to turn that over and give it a nice little press. And because I'm using that liquid glue, it's going to move around a little bit. So you just have to keep playing and making sure that you're convincing it that it needs to be where it needs to be. And I'll let that sit there for a sec. And then I'm going to figure out where I want to put my flower. And because I intentionally put that snowflake there, I don't want to cover that up. And I've got that sequin, and you can see how those other ones are just glomming onto it. That's fine. I'm probably going to put the poinsettia kind of down here.
Mhm.
And there are a ton of ways to do that as well. I'm not a super huge fan of glue dots. You know what? I do want that shaker stuff to be seen though. I don't want to cover that up because that's down at the bottom. So I may sacrifice that snowflake. Such is life. Yeah, I'm going to put that one down there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick a couple of glue dots right on the edge. And then I will pop my poinsettia right on the top. And that glue is really sticking. So that frame is not going to go anywhere. I've never had long nails. I was a nail biter for several years. And my nails, I swear, they kind of get to a point when I let them grow. And they probably reach, a certain point and they don't know. They're scared. They don't know what they're supposed to do. So they sort of look like little ski slopes because they point up and then they break. It's just so aggravating. So there. So now I can see when gravity pulls those sequins down, they're down on the corner. And then to finish off this whole little ornament, I'm going to grab some of that elegant trim. And I'm going to use the silver just because I had some silver sequins. But ribbon would work great. Whatever makes you happy. And I like to come in from the front. I think it looks more finished. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So I'm just going to come in from the front, double up that thread, twine, convince it needs to go in the middle. Just do a little knot. Make sure there's enough room because if this is going to be potentially hung on a tree or a mantle, you need a little bit of room to get it around a branch maybe, and then just snip off the top. And there it is. So just a cute little shaker ornament. This one was made the exact same way. The only difference was the ovals, which are made by 1 die versus the circles that were made by 2 dies. And then I added in the frame to give it a little bit of a finished look. Whereas here it's definitely a little more plain. But you know what? You could also take a frame like this and run it through an embossing folder to give it some texture. You could use designer series paper and a different color to add the frame. That would look super pretty as well. And you could, you know, just bling it up or bling it down. But these are fun and they're so addicting that when you put them on gifts or you send them in a card, I mean, this could be a card too. You could stick this on a front of a card and have it lightly adhered and have people take it off. And that could be the main theme of their Christmas cards. But they're super easy to make. And I think if you look at your dies, you're going to find that there are a ton that you can use to make the frames and then build up your own shaker cards. So that's it.